Okay, back to Mishlei, in chapter 13, and we're up to Mishlei 13:18. Reish v'kalon porea Mussar, v'shomer tochachas yichubad. Anyone want to try taking that? If not, I don't blame you.
I'll try, sure.
Okay.
So Reish, poverty,
Yep.
Cologne, dishonor,
Yeah, good. I'm glad you said dishonor, ignominy, because no one uses that word. Poverty, dishonor. Dishonor.
poverty and dishonor,
Yep.
Porea.
Okay, now porea is the hard word to translate here.
Where's the translation for
Okay,
that?
hold on just a second. Let me. Okay,
Oh,
so
para. All right.
so porea. Okay, let me read them. So either means to lead, to let go or leave alone. Okay, or that's the famous source of covering the hair in the Torah for the women is that with a sota you are porea her hair, which means you uncover it. And then it can mean to let loose or to let alone, or to cause people to refrain or to show lack of restraint.
Uh, maybe we'll poverty and dishonor will uh, come to those who lack restraint and muster.
Okay, yeah. So your intuition is correct. You have to add. I think you have to add something,
Yeah.
some unstated thing. So let's say those who let's say are unrestrained in terms of Mussar. How do you translate Mussar?
Diligence or discipline.
Discipline. Yeah, discipline. Okay. The shomer tochachas yuhubad.
And one who guards himself in rebuke will have will get honor.
Yeah, will be honored. Let's say. Okay.
Will be
Okay.
honored.
So let's see what the Mefarshim have to say here, or not the minimalist Mefarshim. Okay. So Metzudas ציון says, um, Horea is Hinian bittel, and that itself is hard to translate. So he says, um, bittul means like to cancel or to abolish. Okay, and Targum says Haresh Vakalan liporea hamusar. He adds a lamed for one who is porei musar. So that is okay. That's different. Okay, I'll put it together in a little while. Targum says miskana uman le tsa'ara maresh mardusa. Okay, so I think the way to translate that is poverty and I don't even know. I don't even know. Okay, I'm gonna skip that one. Hoyel Moshe, who I don't usually put up here, but he translates it for it as Bilti Mashgiach, someone who does not pay attention to Musar. Okay, and then we've got the English here. I'm gonna go ahead and I'll write all the versions in a second. Article says poverty and shame befall one who rejects discipline. Okay, so they add the word befall, and then they say rejects. They translate pore as rejects. Um, but he who heeds rebuke will be honored. The Septuagint, there's no reverse, says, okay, so they do something interesting. Instruction removes poverty and disgrace. So it's almost like they're translating it backwards. Musar, instruction, that's how they're translating instruction. Porea removes poverty and disgrace. The shomer tochachas yichubad, but he that attends to reproofs shall be honored. Okay, shomer here is like one who watches or is like vigilant with. And then Aldrich says privation and disgrace for one spurning reproof, but he who takes in rebuke will be honored. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, I think let's do the like I guess simplest translation, simple translation. Okay, is poverty and dishonor um for one who rejects Musar. Okay, discipline. Okay, but one who guards rebuke will be honored. Okay, so that's the simple one. That kind of is summarizing altar and art scroll. Okay, then we've got the Ho'il Moshe, who said, and that's also Sadigon, because he says for one who rejects discipline. Okay, Ho'il Moshe says poverty and dishonor for one who neglects Musar. Okay, and then it goes on. All right, and then we're ignoring the Targum, and then we've got the Mitsudas ציון, poverty and dishonor for one who bittel. Hold on just a second. I'm gonna cheat and just look at the Metzudas David really quickly. Okay, no, okay, so I think Metzudas Tion is gonna be in the camp of the art scroll, so we don't have to worry about that. And then the Septuagint we'll keep up there in case anyone wants to tackle that. Okay, so we essentially have 3 translations. Because that's not as bad as I thought. Okay. Yeah. So either rejects, neglects, or you flip the whole thing around. That instruction removes poverty and disgrace. And I'm going to go ahead and say another one also, which is alternative translation is poverty and dishonor for one who is unrestrained in terms of Mussar. These are all very similar. Okay, but yeah, in fact, they're all similar except for the Septuagint. So I'm going to put this down here. Okay, so I'm totally fine if we ignore all these other ones and just stick with the simple one. But you know, there you have it. Okay, so what are the questions? Yeah, Ayala.
What does it mean to guard or rebuke?
Okay.
Like guard specifically?
What does it mean to guard rebuke? Okay. And you know what I'm going to do actually? Hold on just a second here. Shomer. I'm going to go ahead and say all the 3 translations here. So guards, watches, or keeps. Yeah, so what does it mean to shomer? Shomer rebuke. And either way, like I guess how is this different from, you know, accepts or heeds or follows? Yeah, Ariel.
Yeah, well, I mean, what are the opposites of the first and second half of the pasuk? I mean, like on one hand, like you have poverty and dishonor in the first half, and then you only have honor in the second half. Like, what about like
okay, that's a good question. Okay, right. Okay, right. So poverty, sorry, disgrace and honor are opposites. But poverty in the first half seems to not have an opposite partner in the second. Okay, that's a good observation. Yeah, see, this is an example where like it's a pretty good intuitive proof that like this should be opposites because it matches up so well, and then there's just it's missing. Yeah, Rifki.
So I was gonna ask, I think the same thing, which is like I just found it interesting that there were 2 and like 2, I guess, midas in the first half, or not midas, but things that will happen.
Yeah.
And the other half, like I feel like I've never seen that before.
Right. Yeah. So I'll just put this here as well, which is why even have 2, you know, qualities or 2, I guess, thingies in the first half if they're not you know, both matched up.
Yeah, and then so that was also what I was thinking. And then another thing I was thinking was, does the Mussar half apply? Meaning, in the second half, can we apply Mussar as well? Meaning, are we assuming that that person does listen to Mussar, and that's what gives them like kavod?
Okay, so I guess I'll say, well, let's just ask this definition question first. What is the difference between Mussar and tochachah? Sorry, tochachah. Okay, are they synonyms or are they different? And then likewise, what is the difference between you know, Horea Mussar and Shomer tochachas. Yeah. Isaiah.
That was my question.
Okay, nice. Yala.
So how are these happening? Like, what is the cause and effect that's happening here that makes the person who rejects Mussar have poverty and dishonor?
Yeah, okay.
And the other side?
Right, okay. So how in terms of cause and effect does the poverty and disgrace come to the Horea Mussar, and how does the honor come to the Shomer tochachas. Yeah. Next is my dad.
Is rejection of Mussar an absolute, or is it a range of things?
Okay.
And is there a threshold that causes poverty and dishonor?
Okay, yeah, that's good. All right, so let me actually move these around. Okay, so the question is, so let's ask the basic question first, which is, what exactly does Porea Mussar mean? Is this an absolute or a spectrum? And if it's a spectrum, is there a threshold? Okay, that's a really good way of quantitatively asking the question. Okay, Ariel.
Yeah, well, what's the I have a couple of questions, but like, what's the scenario of this pasuk?
Yeah, okay, so what scenario, if any, is this pasuk talking about?
And
Yeah, and it does seem to be on the surface universal, but it could be talking about a scenario, yeah.
yeah, and also is it true that he won't
Okay, yeah.
be
Is this true? And I guess like to what extent is this a definite thing? And to what extent is this a case specific thing? Okay, Rifki.
Yeah, so who is the audience slash like I'm curious about who this is speaking about specifically. And I don't
Yeah.
know if that's what you're considering the scenario, but I'm just interested as to like obviously we know it doesn't use characters, quote unquote. So who could this actually be speaking about?
Okay, right. So yeah, actually I'm gonna split that into two questions. I'm gonna say what scenario is it about and who is this about, given that there are no Mishleic archetypes here. Okay, and then who is the audience, which might not be the same answer. Who is the intended audience? Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to copy and paste the pasuk into the chat, so I'm gonna do that now. Okay. Yeah, Isaiah.
Yeah, so the guy in the second half who's Shomer Tochachos,
Yeah.
he's honored, but is he also not poor and not disgraced?
Well, not disgrace, definitely, right? Because honor is the opposite of disgrace.
Okay, fine. Is he
And-
not poor?
Right. Yeah. So let's say what is the I'm gonna actually tack this onto the question about the opposites, which is does this imply that'd be funny that the guy in the second half is still poor, right? I mean that would be structurally a simple way to say it, right? I mean, but then the question is like, well, why even specify poverty in the first half then? Yeah, it's really confusing. I feel like this is going to be a very important question about what happened. Why how do we make the two symmetrical? Yariel.
Yeah, I kind of want to also add on to Rifki's question on who the audience is. Like if the audience is a guy who needs to hear discipline, right? He's not willing to hear the Mussar, so who really is? I guess I don't know. I guess the question is like, who really is the audience here?
Okay,
Well, that's what he
yeah, no,
asked.
that's a good way to put it. Right. So who's the intended audience? Right. Like what is this audience? What is this guy's orientation towards Mussar or tochachah? Yeah.
Yeah, and does poverty usually, meaning, do you have to define poverty in relation to money, or can it be like, I don't know, like
Not
he's
necessarily.
poor in his midos? I don't know.
No, that's a good question. Let's ask that. What does poverty mean in this context? Okay. Poor in terms of what, and then how poor?
Did we
Okay.
also ask what's the difference between Mussar and tochachah?
We did not. So what is the do we ask any of that? No. Okay, so we asked what's the difference between Shomer. Okay, so let's ask this here. Oh yeah, we did ask what was the difference between Mussar and tochachah. Yeah, but we did not ask what is the definition of disgrace and honor in this context. Yeah. Okay, I think my dad was next.
Yeah, I'm a little bit troubled by that. Poverty, what poverty means in context. I thought we're supposed to take the word itself. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
definite meaning of the word poverty.
Right. So here's the thing. Usually I would agree that you have to take it in that you would have to take it literally, but because we've got this weird phenomenon of poverty not being reflected in the second half,
Mhm.
then that kind of leaves room for maybe it means something else. Like for example, I'll just tell you not to give anything away because I don't really know what we have here, but what if like poverty in whatever we're talking about and disgrace together equals honor, you know? So like in other words, it might not just be simply poverty, you know? Yeah, but you're right, definitely we should usually take it literally. And then the other thing though is that I think in Mishlei, I just want to check and see this. I don't know if this is going to even answer my question, but I'm wondering if Reish does mean like if it even in a literal sense can mean another type of no, it just means poverty. Okay, fine. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly in Mishlei. I wonder how many times it's used in Mishlei. I think it's used mostly in Mishlei. Yep. It's only used in Mishlei 7 times. So we can actually look at this right now. So that is literal. Hon Ashir so that's also literal. Then we have our pasuk. Then we have a repetition of the first pasuk. Obed Admasu Yisbar Lachem Umradif Rekim Yisbar Reish. Okay, I think that is also literally poverty. This is so this is an interesting one. Okay. I don't know if we could prove anything from here. This is an interesting pasuk. I've given shiur on this before. Shav udvar kazav harchek mimeni reish osher al titein li hatrifeni lechem chuki. So, I guess these are two words for falsehood. Falsehood and lies distance from me, like distance them from me. Reish osher al titein li, do not give me poverty and or wealth. Provide for me the my daily bread. So I do think that there are some here who say that the wealth. Actually, I'm not sure. It definitely is. Yeah. Okay. We'll assume it's talking about literal wealth for now, but I think it's still a good question. Okay, Isaiah or David.
Yeah. What leads the person to reject this Mussar? And in what way does he reject it? And just two possibilities like within that of is it like writing it off as being totally stupid or it doesn't apply to me or
Okay,
other things
right.
of that sort.
Okay, so I'll say so. What exactly does Purei Mussar mean? And then I'll say I'm gonna add editorial here. Why does he Purei Mussar? And like if that even matters, right? It might not matter why, but yeah. And yeah, I'm gonna mention this for methodology's sake. I know I've said this a lot, but every when I used to the main times I used to learn Mishlei with Rabbi Moskowitz would be during the summer. So what would happen is like, I would be in yeshiva for a year and I'd be learning Mishlei with my chavrusas and by myself. And then I'd come back to Rabbi Moskowitz for the summer, and then he'd have to sort me out in terms of like his derech, And eventually we kind of like I developed my own approach, and we kind of came to a more I don't know, more harmony in our approach. But one of the big things he used to say to me was, "You're always trying to read the pesukim psychologically, like talking about making the idea hinge on motives." And he was saying Mishlei is about consequences, and consequences don't always or don't usually care about motives. In other words, like I could blow up and get angry at someone because of childhood trauma or because I'm having a bad day or because I don't like the person, but the blowing up in anger is going to have the same consequences. So not to say that we don't psychologize, but like he would always say, look at the consequences first, independently of why it's done, unless you have reason in the pasuk to say otherwise. Yeah, Rifki.
Yeah, I really like that. And also, so just another question.
Yeah, Rabbi Moskowitz is good at learning Mishlei. Yeah.
But yeah, I was just wondering, I don't know if this is like a silly question or if it would be included in the questions about the rebuke that's given, but I'm wondering if it depends, like maybe similar to what your dad was saying, like who's giving the Mussar, because like
yeah, that's actually a good question, right?
Yeah, like I think it would depend, and we've had other pesukim where we've dealt with who's giving it, and depending on who it is, then you could either like take it or leave it.
Yeah. Hold on. Do we even ask what the Mussar is? Oh, we just say what's the difference between Mussar and tochachah. Okay, I'm gonna actually put that up here. Hold hold on. I'm bad at the arrangement of the questions today. Oops. Okay. I want to say, what is the difference between Mussar and tochachah? And then I also want to say where or from whom does the Mussar and tochachah come from, and does it matter? Okay, and so for example, like if this is I mean these two questions are kind of intertwined, but like if we're talking about someone like in an event giving him criticism, that'd be one thing. But if we're talking about like just any self-improvement or any discipline, like learning Mishlei, then I feel like that might be a different problem. So yeah. Okay, next is my dad again.
Is any lapse in discipline a rejection of it, or do people sometimes fail to be disciplined themselves? They haven't rejected the discipline; they're just unable to hold
Okay,
them.
so that's like a subdivision within the question of is it absolute, which I'll say, like I thought that's what you meant by is there a threshold, meaning like at what point, at what point of rejection does one become a rejecter of Mussar? Is that what you meant by threshold? Because you used the word threshold earlier.
I use the word threshold to talk about the response of a lack of.
Oh, okay, I see. Okay, right. Okay, so is there a threshold?
This is just saying, people may try to hold to a discipline, fail at doing that. Doesn't mean they rejected the discipline. They're just unable to live by it.
Okay, so I'm going to say I'll divide the threshold question. Is there a threshold either in terms of the characteristic, meaning at what point of rejection does one become a rejecter, or in the consequences? Like, i.e., at what point does one get poverty and disgrace? Yeah. Avital?
I'm not sure if this was like asked or discussed already. I came in a bit late, but I was just wondering, like, is the pasuk talking about someone who receives advice and this is kind of their reaction to it, or somebody's perspective on the idea of Mussar as a whole?
Right, yeah. So I'm actually gonna I did intend that in one of these questions, but I didn't really type it. So okay, so are we talking about an act of Mussar and tochachah? Okay, for example, someone gives you rebuke, or are we talking about like the entire enterprise of Mussar and tochachah? Okay, for example, learning Mishlei, improving one's midos. Oop, what happened there? Midos. Yeah.
Or just, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, go ahead, Avital.
I was going to say, just, I don't know if this is a third category, but, or just someone who they themselves will like never take upon themselves to give Mussar, like.
Oh, okay. That is a good thing. Or are we talking about someone who doesn't give Mussar and tochachah? That's interesting. Yeah, I that's a creative reading. I think the only reason I wouldn't be inclined to that is I feel like shomer tochachah fits in better with like being shomer the tochachah that you have had. Like I don't know what shomer would be.
Meaning, I thought it was referring to somebody who's like careful about like making sure where it's really needed to be given, that they make sure that it's given in a proper way. Maybe
I definitely hear that. Yeah, I definitely think that is a possible reading, but even if it's not the intuitive one. But yeah, that'd be interesting to explore that. Yeah, Isaiah?
So assuming that the first half is talking about someone who is getting Mussar, so who's doing the dishonor? Is that from the perspective of the person who tried to give him Mussar, or is that from other people's perspective? Like, in what realm is he dishonored?
Okay, yeah. I'm going to tack that into question 3. In what realm and from who? Whom? Okay. I feel like that's a lot of questions. I feel like we must have gotten all of them. Yeah. I also have one nitpicky question, which we're not going to answer probably. I don't know grammar, but I feel like this is bad grammar. Shomer tochachas, because tochachas is smichut, which is like, it should be tochachas something. You know, I don't know why it has to have like literally tochachas means the rebuke of, like one who guards the rebuke of will be honored. Okay, so I'm gonna add that as a stylistic question, and if we can answer it, great. Okay, why does it use the grammatically incorrect tochachas, which literally means rebuke of. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let me copy and paste these questions into the chat, and I'm not even gonna try for, am I? Yeah, I'll try for getting them in 2 shots. See what happens. All right, we got 1. And then what do we have to do? 6 through 13. This is never gonna work. No, it didn't work. Okay. We'll just do 6 through 11. Even 6 through 11 doesn't work? Okay. We'll do 6 through 10. Okay, and let me change all the numbers for the sake of neuroses. Oops. 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and then let's do 10 through. Oop. What happened? Oh, I did 2 6s. Can I edit it? No, I can't. All right, forget it. All right, no more neuroses. I'm just gonna put in the last questions. Okay. All right, so let's go. And you have a question before we go, Rivki?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question was, I was just like thinking about an approach, and then I was thinking like, I guess maybe this is related to the is it true question.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if a Russia takes rebuke, because my sense would be no.
Right.
But I feel like then why would it not just say that? So that's my question.
Why would it, you mean, why would it not define this person as a Russia?
Yeah, meaning I guess what I'm asking is like, I guess it's more specifically on like the character of a Russia.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like if they're
I think there are lots of people who don't take rebuke. You know, like Russia doesn't take rebuke, a seal doesn't take rebuke, a Lates doesn't take rebuke, and then you could even have a normal person who doesn't take rebuke in a certain circumstance. So I think that's like to me, it does make sense that this is really talking about anybody. But yeah.
Also, couldn't there be a Russia that does take rebuke in some way if it'll like help him in the immediate?
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that was my question. Was like, can a Russia? Because whatever. I guess it was based on what I was like thinking about for an approach. But yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay, let's take our thinking minute. I am recording, right? That'd be terrible if I wasn't. Okay, I am. Yeah. Oh, you want to? Well, there's one question we missed, which is why specify these consequences and benefits as opposed to others? And you could say that that's not a good question. Actually, you know what? Hold on just a second. No, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pair that with the Rabbi Moskowitz question. What is the subject of this pasuk? Those might be related. And what I mean by that first question is there's lots of benefits of of listening to rebuke and not rejecting Mussar, you know? So like why hone in on this one? And that might point us to what the subject is. Okay, now let's think. Tough one.
Did we also ask why there are 2 consequences for the first one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we said we put that in our question about the opposites. In my real numbering, it is number 10. You know what we didn't ask? Hold on. Did we not ask this? I'm gonna just tack this onto the question of the Shomer tochachah versus Porei Mussar. Hold on. What does too many questions? Okay, I guess I'm gonna tack this on to question number 9. What does it mean to be Shomer rebuke? And then like, you know, where does the mere, you know, listener to rebuke fall in this pasuk? In other words, let's assume that Horea Mussar is like anti, and Shomer is like super. So like, what about the person who just like heeds the rebuke? You know, are they going to get like partial wealth? You know, partial honor? They're not going to get anything. Okay, Rifki, you're up.
So I'm wondering if this could be about a pasuk, like about levels of listening to rebuke. And the reason why I'm wondering that is because, like, I feel like, first of all, the use of Mussar and then tochachah, like the fact that they're different forms, and then also like the consequences, I guess. So what I was thinking was, at least in my head, and like it might be from other pesukim that we learned, that I feel like we've generally translated and like understood Mussar as like a more general category of like Mishlei is considered to be Mussar, and like that type of I guess rebuke in that sense, like on that level. I guess more of like a general like way of life. And then I feel like tochachah is like more specific instances of like, okay, like you're telling a person like a specific direction to go in that moment because that's what they need.
Okay,
So
if I comment on that now, will you still remember the rest of what you're going to say? If not, then go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm just nervous because like it's in.
Yeah,
like,
no, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
I mean, if it's not correct, then I don't want to continue.
No. No, go ahead.
So yeah, so that's what like my initial thoughts were. And then I was thinking like the reason why it uses like shomer is because it is kind of saying like that. Sorry, Debbie's leaving. But is because, sorry, that really threw me off. That it's like I was saying, like level. So I was thinking that I think rebuke in general is a very hard thing for any person. And that like you have to kind of start out on a level of like being able to take specific instances of rebuke in that specific situation by someone that you trust. So I guess that's answering like who the rebuke is coming from. And then like I guess I'll get to the consequences later. And then on the other half, like once you can get to that level of like, okay, you're taking those specific instances, then you won't be in that category of someone who's not getting like the fuller lifestyle of Mussar, and therefore you won't have poverty and dishonor. And I guess like where I'm going with the consequences is that I guess in any area, like whether it's a job or in like your family or whatever it is, if you're like known, if your reputation is someone that can't take any criticism, whether it's like a positive or negative criticism, I guess here it would be more positive, like constructive, then you're not going to be honored because people aren't going to be able to have actual conversations and relationships with you, and you're not going to improve. And obviously that's not going to lead to honor. So yeah, that's kind of
so partially my fault, but I think I got caught up in thinking about the point that I wanted to say before, and I was trying not to forget it. Okay, so I had a hard time listening to the other stuff. So I'll state that first. Okay, so what Rifki, this is what you said, right? That Mussar is just like the general enterprise of either like learning Mishlei or being concerned about like decision making.
Yeah.
And
dose and like all that,
and
literally anything like that.
Right. And then tochachah is a specific instance of rebuke, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I agree with you that if you have two of them together, then I do think that that's how I would say them. I want to point out, though, that in the first pasuk in Mishlei, no, not the first, yeah. The first, like, real pasuk in Mishlei. Shema b'ni Mussar avicha v'al titosh Torah simecha. Listen, my son, to the Mussar of your father, and don't reject the teaching of your mother. So there it does seem to use Mussar in like an instance of rebuke. And then same thing. Yeah, I mean, there's other examples of that also. So I just want to clarify that it can be used as a synonym for tochachah, but I agree that if both of them are being used, then I think this is a good reading. Okay, that was one point I was going to make. The other point I was going to make is, I don't know if this is a legal move, but maybe there's a support for what you're saying in the fact that it uses tochachas, which means rebuke of, because what's the only case you could have rebuke of is like a particular case, like rebuke of this, of this person or whatever, So I'm not confident on that. And then the third point I was going to make is, this is where I started to get confused.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that I lost the hierarchy here? In other words, like let's say you got a neutral person, okay, So are you saying that the first level in development is to be able to listen to individual rebukes, and then you can get to the highest level, which would be to like be interested in Mussar as a whole? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
but I think
And then
if-
in the other way, then rejecting individual rebukes is like bad, but then rejecting all rebukes is the worst.
exactly.
Oh,
And
good.
like
So I did hear you. Okay, good.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I was okay. Yeah. Okay. So there are levels. Okay, and I'm just gonna type this out, and I'm gonna use up a lot of space in doing this. Okay, so we have like highest level. I'm just gonna hold on, move this here. Okay, highest level is interested in Mussar per se. Okay, lower level is not interested in Mussar, but open to tochachah. Okay, and then you've got neutral, which is, like, I guess neither here nor there. Okay, then you've got bad, which is like resistant to particular tochachah, but still open to, development, self-development in other ways. Okay, for example, like this is the person who might like work on themselves, but they're not going to take rebuke from others. And then really bad is rejects Mussar per se. Okay, and what that's saying is that, okay, so now I've got that was your second step of the idea. Third step of the idea, I think at this point I don't trust myself to try to reconstruct this. So now you're at up to the consequences.
Yeah.
So say what you want to say again for this.
So like I think I didn't have necessarily specific reason like for poverty. I think that one was a little harder for me, but I
Yeah.
think just generally speaking, that someone, like I was saying, whether it's in a family or in a job or whatever it is, if you're not able to take any particular rebuke, and then obviously like once you go further than that, if you're not living like a lifestyle of that like at all, then I think it would be very challenging to get honor in any sense, like whether you're a parent and you're not getting advice from other people about parenting, and then that's obviously going to mess up the whole family system, and you're not going to have honor in that way. Or if you want to go from a job perspective, just like I think the same exact thing, that if you're not willing to take specific advice, and therefore you're not willing to get on a level where you're open to a lifestyle of advice, then you're not going to get honor at all, which is, I guess, where the dishonor comes in. I am having a little bit harder time with the poverty aspect. I think I can see it with a job, but not beyond that.
Okay. I think the part I'm having a little bit of a hard time with is why focus on the really bad for the first half and the lower level in the second half. I think, yeah, you know what? I'm wondering like this. Maybe this can answer the question. Okay, maybe the implication is that if you reject Mussar, so you're going to get poverty and disgrace. Okay, but if you just reject tochachah, but you're still open to Mussar, you might get oh, hold on, I had it. Let me go the other way. If you are open to tochachah, you'll get honor. But if you're interested in Mussar per se, then you're going to get honor and wealth. Okay. And then if you are resistant to tochachah, then you will get dishonor. But if you reject Mussar on the whole, you'll get dishonor and poverty. Okay. And maybe wealth here means success. Okay. In other words, however you're measuring your success, so it could be in money, it could be in like promotions, it could be in results, or in just social standing. So the idea there would be that and success would be something where, I don't know if I'm hijacking your idea, Rivki, and like taking it in a direction that you're not taking it.
I mean, I think up until now, I think it is. I like where you're going with the poverty, because that's what was bothering me. Okay,
so let me just try this. Okay, we'll just do a tag team here for a second here. So this is Mishlei wise. Okay, so if a person can't handle the ego blow of a particular rebuke, okay, then he might suffer embarrassment, I guess disgrace, right, disgrace in a particular area, but that's not necessarily going to establish a pattern that propels him to success. To failure. Okay, but if he just rejects all forms of Mussar, then that's a recipe for disgrace and failure. Okay, likewise, if a person is willing to set aside his ego to heed rebuke, okay, then he will be paid off in the immediate in terms of kavod. Okay, I'm not really going to specify what it is right now. Okay, but if he is shomer Mussar, okay, meaning like keeps to Mussar as a way of life, then he'll get short-term honor and long-term success. So this is like one of these, and yeah, this for those who aren't familiar, this is going to look like an illegal move, but we know the Mishlei does this a lot. Is that you take, part of the first half and inject the opposite into the second half, and then part of the second half and inject the opposite into the first half. And what it's doing is it's giving you just enough ingredients to be able to put the whole thing together, and to get 5 levels. Okay. Anyone have anything to contribute to this? Because I think we're almost done with this. With this, I don't know what the balloons were for Sima. I've never seen that before. I guess you really like the idea. Yeah. Anyway, anyone have anything else to say to this? I feel like the only part that we really need to work on here is I want to get a clear idea of the kavod. I get it how I get where the disgrace comes from, because classic thing is like, I'll give you an example of this. And I've used this example before. When I taught 9th grade study skills, okay, in Shalhevet, then there were always, I told kids that not every technique works with every person, but you should at least try the technique to see if it works for you, And there were the kids who would try it and then say, oh, Rabbi Shnei was like, I got 100% on the test, and I'd be like, great, And then there are the kids who just would not even try the technique. And I'd say, why don't you even try it? And oh, that's just not for me, So like, if you are like, in other words, if a particular technique you don't try, if you don't try a particular technique, you might fail that particular thing and get like a small amount of disgrace. But if you just are like, I am not trying techniques that are not mine, that's going to like commit you to a path to failure, and failure and disgrace. Okay. That's like my example of that type of thing. And then if you implement small instances of tochachah, you'll get the kavod from that particular area, but that's not going to necessarily guarantee that you'll succeed, because you're still dependent on receiving tochachah from people. But if you commit yourself to seeking out self-improvement in whatever area you want, then you're committing yourself to a path that's going to lead to your success. Okay. Anyone have anything they want to add to this idea? I think this is a good teamwork idea. Rivki, I did not have this idea before you mentioned the hierarchy, so I'm glad this is genuine teamwork here. Yeah.
I asked something also about the kavod.
Yeah.
I was just like, I was thinking that I really relate kavod to like, I guess being contingent on having other people around.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, if we can also add that in terms of like the only way to get kavod, and I think like people in general, like it's a basic human, I guess, want that people want to be respected, that a very good way of doing that is by taking that criticism from people when it matters. And not just being a doormat, obviously, but I think like just relating it to the people around you, like we'll see that, like, I guess basically it's answering a way of getting kavod also, which is by actually being receptive to, I guess, listening to other people and their opinions, and then taking that in a way. And I think that's also why I use a shomer, because it's not saying to take everything, it's just saying to guard yourself, to make sure that you're like actually taking what's good, and what's not good you don't take. And that's how you get kavod.
Okay. So yeah, so there's I'll just say there's a natural human need for kavod, and the willingness to take feedback will almost always contribute to that, and the opposite with the opposite. Yeah. Okay. All right, good. On to the next idea.
Can I just ask a general Mishlei question?
Yeah, sure.
Does Shlomo ever like basically put in like references? Like, should this remind us of like the, let's say, pesukim that it comes from in the Torah, like specifically to point to an idea there, or not really?
Yeah, there is definitely he definitely uses that move because he wrote Mishlei in order to clarify Torah. So if there is a particular thing in Torah that you know that this is like based on, then he is expecting that you know that and that this is shedding light on that. Did you have something
Okay.
specific in mind?
Yeah, I was thinking just an approach that's in line with that, but like other people could go first.
Okay, sure. All right, Isaiah.
Yeah. So I feel like so when someone gives you Mussar, slash tochachah, I'm treating those as basically the same thing. And I'm treating it as like an individual instance of getting rebuke.
Okay.
So I feel like when that happens, there's like a certain exchange. Like someone is giving you advice or they're telling you you're doing something wrong, and then there's like a clock, and now we see like do you change your ways sort of in a way that aligns with what they said, or do you not? And so it's not like an immediate thing like you either accept it or you throw it off. It's like let's see sort of what the consequences are. So I think that's why it's like Porea versus Shomer. It's like you could either like sort of like start like not take it into account when it comes to like how you act, or you could end up taking it into account like you could it's a sort of continuous slash like how it goes into developing your behavior in a general way. Like I don't think a piece of Mussar is like something that takes one action and like it's not something that has an immediate effect. It's something that sort of forms you, like helps to form you.
Okay, so
So
just to make sure I'm understanding this, meaning like if I say, if I'm teaching you how to drive and I say like, your lights are off, turn them on, and then you turn your lights on, that's not tochachah. You're saying tochachah is like something that's more like long term that you have to consider.
well, I guess maybe that I wouldn't say that that's not tochachah, but tochachah is also like they're telling you to be like a cognizant person when they're telling you to do that. Like
Uh-huh.
there's certain like maybe it's just that it does form your personality, not that it's only that, but like that it like it. So like maybe I'll
Well,
say
I guess
what I'm gonna say in the pasuk, and you'll see if it
okay, sure.
makes sense.
Sure.
So like so a person so when a person gives you tochachah, like if you start like acting in line with what they said, so then or if you don't, let's say you end up they say something and then you end up like not acting in the way that they suggested that you act, so then they're going to view you as someone who like they're not gonna trust you because you're not someone who listens to what they say, and so they're not going to want to like do business with you because you're not like a trustworthy person. You're someone who just doesn't really like take into account like what you have in mind for them, like, and they also view you as like a worse person, so it's a dishonor to you. It's like you're not as good as you could have been because like they have in mind like a better self for you, and you're not really like taking that into account.
Mhm.
Whereas if you do, so then that's like they'll view you as like more honored person. It's like you're they view you as like you're better than you were, and I think there's an honor to like growing yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I feel like I'm getting I'm on the intuitive current of what you're saying. And I like the move you're making, but let me try putting it into words and into writing and see if it this helps. So
Yeah.
A a re- an instant, even even though rebuke is delivered in an instance, it's more like a seed that is planted that will either take root and grow or not. And the one who delivers the rebuke will be watching to see which of the two happens. Okay, so if if they see that you are heeding and incorporating the rebuke, okay, and that's like shomer, right? shomer is like, being diligent with it, then your esteem will grow in their eyes. But if they don't see evidence of that, then it will be tantamount to a rejection. And all right, so far is this what you're saying, or is this not what you're saying?
Yeah, so far, yeah.
Okay, so then this is up to the point where I don't see the I think I just missed what happens in this first half.
So I think that this affects their perception of you, and they view you as like both like not. I think it's like a certain trust. Like I told you this thing, and like either you're going to accept it or not. And so if you don't do it, it's like a break of trust. So I think that's race. Like they're going to view you as a non-trustworthy person who, like, practically, like maybe they won't want to do business with you because they don't think you're like trusting what they think, and I think that's not someone you want to do business with. And then Colin is like they're viewing you as like making poor decisions. You're not as good of a person as you could have been.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly about the column.
In their eyes. Yeah. I think okay, so well the column I think is the easier one because I think that's the opposite of the of what you had for the second half. The thing that I am not convinced about is the trustworthy thing. And it's not that I don't think that the idea is true, it's just that to me it feels like a forced read into poverty. Now the move I like you're doing structurally though is that you are well, okay. I'm still bothered by why it's not in the second half also. Yeah, so I think this is the part, the poverty, if we can solve that, then I like the idea here. But I just to stop and appreciate the idea for 1 second, I mean, I do think that the insight you're giving about rebuke is a good one. Just give me 1 second. Right. Meaning really, whether it's conscious or not, when we rebuke someone or we give them constructive criticism and they implement it, the reason why their esteem goes up in our eyes is not, or hopefully is not because they just listened. It's because we're seeing what kind of person that they are, that they're a self-improving person. And that does have like, that raises the actual esteem, like, in other words, people do get an ego gratification when someone listens to their constructive criticism. I don't think that's what this is talking about here, because this is saying that the other person actually becomes honored in their eyes. So I do think you're hitting on the right phenomenon here. Okay, let's leave this aside and think about it. But I like the way it's it's like 85% done. Yeah, Ariel.
Yeah. Okay, so I kind of want to I want to limit the case a little bit. So
Okay.
I want to say that this individual who I'm gonna make a couple of shocking moves, so just take it easy on me for a second.
Okay. Fair enough.
So I want to say
Thank you for the warning.
that this individual who rejects Mussar, I don't think he's an individual who always rejects Mussar.
Okay.
I wanna posit that he only rejects Mussar in an environment that he believes to be a professional at.
That he believes that he's a professional at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is natural because like he thinks he's great at this one area, and he may be more resilient to listening to Mussar from other gedolim in that area.
Okay.
Okay. And I wanna say that another move is that I want to say that this poverty can also apply to someone who's wealthy.
Okay.
Why? Because let's say he's an individual like in business, right? And he wants to break through his ceiling and get to the next level in making money.
Yeah.
Okay. And if he doesn't listen to the Mussar, that's that already exists in his world, such that he can break through it. Like he's just like not gonna pay attention, or he just doesn't know about it, or he just doesn't care about it, or whatever. The poverty is in what he's losing out because he's not listening to the Mussar. The potential.
Okay. I hear that. So it's really a better translation then would not be poverty, but loss.
Yes.
Yeah. And you could be rich and have loss.
Yes, but is that true? Can Reish be loss? Is that like
yeah, I think so. I mean, the pesukim that we saw it in used it as a synonym for machzor, which is loss. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good,
So
loss.
yeah.
All right, I like that. And the dishonor is from the individuals who know that he can do so much better, but because of his own ego, he's not letting himself break through that ceiling, which is gonna which is the dishonor in itself in that field.
Okay, hold on a second. So I just need to start writing because I'm gonna lose track of it here. So Reish equals loss, as opposed to objective poverty. Okay, Purei Mussar equals one who rejects Mussar in a particular area that he feels qualified in. Okay, and then say that last part that you just said again. I remember what you were explaining.
I have to remember also. Just 1 second. Right. So, oh yeah, and the dishonor is coming from the fact that he from the the dishonor is stemming from the fact that he's not his ego is limiting him from breaking through that ceiling, and because people are going to watch that, and there are people are going to be frustrated, right. Like, what are you doing? Just all you have to do is just listen to the methodology or in whatever you need to do in order to break through that ceiling so that everyone can succeed.
Right.
And you're limiting that.
Okay, so breaking through the ceiling that everyone knows he is capable of, right?
Yeah.
Capable of. Okay. So we're talking here about someone who's rejecting, right. So it's interesting. Let me just think of the process for 1 second here. So up until now we've been saying, so Rivki was saying Purei Mussar, someone who's just not interested in self-improvement at all. And then Isaiah was saying, no, it's talking about a person who's particular, like a particular person gives him rebuke, and in that instance he rejects it. And then Ariel's saying it's even more specific, which is that that he can't stand rebuke in areas that he views as a professional, like he views himself as an expert. And I guess you can say that that's supported by the fact that we're measuring everything in terms of kavod here, like whether he's honored or not. I don't know if that's a proof, but that is a support at least. Okay. I'm following you so far.
Okay, and the second half of the pasuk, it's funny how like the guy doesn't have to be wealthy to get the honor, and and I think this might answer your question about the tochachas.
Yeah.
Meaning, like all of this guy's really doing is he's being shomer the tochachas, that the rebuke that's already there in the world, and he's just observing that. He's just keeping an eye out for that. So nobody has to directly give it to him. It's already there. Like he just has to open his eyes and just accept it. And
Jose, I just this one thing is the tochachah synonymous with Mussar for you, or no? It's not. I think tochachas is just like the general wisdom.
Yeah, I want to say general wisdom. Yeah.
So tochachah is the wisdom that's out there, and then shomer tochachas equals like just like heeding that general wisdom. Yeah. Okay. So
and
now
he will be honored because people will see that it's working. Like his actions are working, and the natural success will just be very visible.
Yeah.
Even though it's not immediate, but people will see the little actions that's working.
Yeah. Okay. Over time. I'm going to read what Noah put in the chat. I like Ariel's interpretation a lot, not necessarily thinking about business. It almost sounds like Shlomo somewhat refuting his own hubris, violating the laws of kings because he thought he was too wise to get caught in those snares. That's a good example of that, right? Right. Shlomo was the Mishlei expert, right? He wrote the book on Mishlei, right? And then he's the one who ignored his own Mishlei, and then, or the Hashem's Mishlei, and then fell into those into those snares. Yeah, that's a good example of that. Okay, so the only thing I am not, there's not even a critique. I'm just having a hard time wrapping my mind around the unified idea, and maybe this is where we really need the subject, which I think Ariel and Noah are getting at here. So what's the subject here? It's a very specific subject. My favorite line that you said is someone who's letting his ego limit him from breaking through the ceiling that he's already shown himself to be accomplished in, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, the chiddush, I think that to me the chiddush is that he's a guy who would normally listen to Mussar, but for some reason in his own field,
Yeah.
like he just can't do it.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, now I know I just told David not to psychologize unless the pasuk warrants it. And I think the way you're taking the pasuk warrants it is that I think what happens is you get to a certain level of success and you don't, and you've got the kavod from the success you've had, and you feel that taking Mussar in the field that you're allegedly an expert in is going to be is going to diminish your kavod. Is, you know, like that somehow like shows that you're worse. Let me just type that out here. Okay, so
yeah. Like if imagine if Warren Buffett were to ask someone advice on how to, you know, invest.
Yeah, right.
You know,
so
like
so the subject is taking tochachah in a realm of your expertise. Okay, and like there's a danger specifically for people who are high achievers in a field that they feel like taking advice or taking guidance is going to blemish their expertise, but that could end up being their undoing, you know. And I could say also, by the way, that it could be the you know, it's going to be a disgrace, and it could also, I think it could cause them to like lose everything that they've had up until now, you know, like if you are a, you know, let's say in business or in war or in like, you know, anything where there's like a progress that you can like lose all the progress. I think that can you know, you can actually like lose all the stuff, not just the opportunity.
it's funny because like in my company they're
Well,
very
just get this down while it's in my head. But if you're in that position and you set aside your ego and take the advice, then the results will speak for themselves, and you'll get that success and not suffer the loss. Okay, which is why the loss is not mentioned in the second half, and it doesn't need to mention the gain because that is where you're getting the honor from. Okay, good. Now I got the idea. Yeah, Ariel.
Yeah, it's funny because like in my company that like they're very big into, you know, there's like a saying like you should be learning based, you know, like it means that like you should always want to learn something even though you think like you know it,
right?
You know, and you know, yeah, there was something else I wanted to say but I forgot, but whatever.
Yeah, no, this is a really good this is a different kind of pasuk about tochachah than I've seen before, and yeah, I really like that. Yeah, the only thing I think right now I'm too attached to the idea to be able to see whether I would have arrived at it. Yeah, go ahead.
So there's one more thing, like, but we see like in learning in Torah, it's like the opposite. Like you should, like I think you should even ask like what, like a garbage man.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Like look, because there's no such thing as you know, because like I feel like there's a reason why I have to say that, because like you may think that, oh, he may have nothing to offer, but no, we don't discriminate, you know, in knowledge and chachma.
Yeah. Now that you mention that, by the way, I just have to say, like, I think the first example I really saw this in Torah was when Rabbi Yaakov Trachman, not a rabbi, came to yeshiva. He was 17, and I remember seeing Rabbi Chait like just like listening to him critique his svaras, you know, his ideas in the shir, like some like 17-year-old kid who just comes to yeshiva from Israel, you know, and is like critiquing the Rosh Yeshiva's ideas, and like he listened to him, and like he, you know, it was a very impressive thing. Yeah, Ayala, you want to add?
Yeah, just like I feel like it's an interesting way of like it highlights why the pasuk is specifically talking about honor and dishonor in relation to rebuke. Like talking about the psychology piece, it reminds me of like, or I thought of the idea, I mean, based off of like what Ariel was saying, I guess, that in general, I feel like a lot of the resistance to listening to Mussar rebuke, whether or not you're actually an expert, is your ego or whatever. So like I don't think it only has to apply in the extreme case of someone who's an expert in the field. I think in general, people don't like to listen to rebuke because it feels like that's like them admitting that like they're not worthy of honor, kind of. But it's like, no, in fact, you will get honor from it.
Okay, yeah, I like that that idea. Okay, so so people feel like listening to rebuke means that they're not worthy of honor, which is why Shlomo is telling you that you're going to gain more honor. I almost had a situation like this this weekend. So I was at this Shabbaton at in West Hartford, and I was asked to give the drasha at the Young Israel of West Hartford, and I don't give shul drushas. Like I've done it once. I did it last year in Richmond. But if you think anyone, those of you who have been, to YBT on Shabbos, there's a thing between Mincha and Mariv. Those aren't drushas. Those are mini shiurim, and like that's kind of all I know, So I got up, I asked the Rav of the shul, what, like what are the people like in terms of like what kind of stuff can I do, and then like how long it should be, and he said, he told me the amount of time. And he told me that they're intelligent and interested crowd. And then I gave the drasha, and I got a lot of positive feedback. But then the Rav of the shul said, "I'm only telling you this feedback because you did an amazing job, but you put in way too much stuff and covered way too much stuff in way too little time." And I think that if I had viewed myself as like, if I put it all in one category, like I'm a good teacher, like, I don't want to listen to this, then I think I would have felt that that's like like I was saying, like that like you're stepping on my kavod, But I think because in my mind I set aside, like, this opened up a new cat. Well, as soon as I heard him say that, I was like, oh, clearly drasha giver is not the same thing as high school teacher, and I don't know what I'm doing, So like I'm willing to learn and to take it for next time. So I think like I, now that Ariel outlined this idea, I think I could have fallen into that trap if I had like conceived of my own kavod in a certain way. So that's a timely example. Okay, anyone want to add to this idea before we go on to the next one? Whew. Subtle good ideas this time.
Yeah, Ariel's idea.
Ariel's idea, yeah.
I don't want to cut in line.
Okay, so we'll go to Avital first. Yeah, Avital.
I don't know if mine is such a chiddush, and it's a little bit in line with like what Ayala was saying. Yeah. But I guess I was kind of looking at the two outcomes for the first part for somebody who rejects Mussar versus like the one outcome for somebody who, like, however you want to translate, it's like shomer tochachah. And I was just kind of thinking that, like, in my head, it just felt so clear that somebody who's properly able to give tochachah, like, if you're able to give like good advice with, like, let's say everything that comes along with it in a way that's like loving and caring, but also like really on point, and I guess just like really productive criticism, then like that's something very like honorable. And on the same side, so that's if you're giving, and then on the same thing, if you're able to take it also, that's also something that's like honorable. And then for the first part, if you're looking at it in terms of receiving it, somebody who doesn't receive it, I think that's when wait, I want to just make sure I'm saying this right.
Sure.
Yeah, somebody who's kind of, I guess, not able to stand up for like what's right and be able to give proper critique when it's necessary, like that's pretty like dishonoring, because to be somebody who doesn't really stand up for what's proper, correct, or let's say isn't able to like isn't at all able to give over that necessary rebuke, I guess, in that way, like it's dishonorable. And then for himself, if he can't take it either, like if you're doing the wrong thing and you're not taking advice from anyone in that way, like I think poverty is something that makes sense, or in terms of like lacking in success. So like I don't think it's something like so chiddush, but like it feels very much something that's true, that like holds true in reality. And like B is something that we don't necessarily think about when we're whether it's taking or like giving rebuke, take into account like the double-edged positiveness when we do it in a positive way, and the kind of double-edged negatives of like financial or whatever you want to call like this poverty type thing, in addition to like being dishonorable when you're in a place when you really should be giving.
Okay. So I'm going to just write the order that you said it in. So each side applies to giving and receiving rebuke. Second side is one who takes the care to give rebuke when it's warranted and does it in the right way will be honored. And one who receives it in the proper way will also increase their honor. And then the first side is one who doesn't take the care to, I think the translation fits best with your idea is the Hoyel Moshe, of that he neglects Mussar or doesn't pay attention to it, like you said, lo hishgiach. I think that fits in with both of them better. So it doesn't take the care to give rebuke when it's warranted, or doesn't give it with the proper care, okay, is acting in a disgraceful way. Like if you've ever had a situation where you've like done something that you're not sure of like how to do, and then afterwards you find out that someone makes some comment to you, and you're like, why didn't you just like tell me like how to do it, and there is a certain like, you do feel a certain like, am I not important enough in your eyes? Like, do you not care about me? Like there's a dishonor being given through that. Let's say dishonorable way. And if you don't take care to receive the rebuke properly, then that will also bring dishonor. How did you say the poverty in the first half for both sides?
So that's more, so the poverty aspect is on the side of when he's receiving, or when whoever it is receiving the rebuke and they can't take it. So in that way, you're never taking these corrections that literally could put you in poverty or take whatever, like, I guess it was more on a, whether it's like job or even lifestyle, like doing things that are kind of dumb that somebody could guide you in, whether it's like you're investing in something and you're not willing to take other people's advice because of your ego or whatever it is, that could lead to like literal poverty.
Yeah, okay, that's good. And then Noah's typing in the chat here, definitely feel that way in my niche of the world. When you show up to a writing workshop and you don't give quality feedback, people dislike you even when you love their work. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there's a certain disrespect that people feel when you are in a position to give rebuke or feedback and you don't. Okay, next is my dad. Wow, there's more ideas than I expected here, but that's a good problem to have. Yeah.
The idea of the expert getting rebuke, getting advice, and the consequences of that, it made me think of Elon Musk. And there were many times when he was given advice and he rebuked it, and disasters resulted. And there are many times when he was given advice and he ended up taking it.
Yeah.
Things worked out. I mean, it gets.
Yeah, that is a good example. Right. Yeah, his ego definitely got in the way. And yeah, that's what makes him. We were at the Faders a couple Shabbos ago and talking about how the question was raised about Elon Musk's character, and he really doesn't fit squarely into a lot of the Mishlei archetypes. Like he definitely partakes of a lot of the qualities, but is very hard because of things like this. Like he does listen to rebuke it sometimes, and other times he just completely rejects it for a dumb reason. Yeah, it's a good example. Okay, Ayala.
Okay, so I'm not sure if my idea is necessarily always true or if it's similar to what everyone else said, but I'm gonna try it, I guess, and figure out.
Remember, you always have the option of doing what Saiduan calls the yesh pasuk, of just saying that this applies to a specific case.
Okay, so maybe we'll go with that. We'll see. So I was thinking about like honor and dishonor is like what I was starting out on this pasuk and thinking about like what is honor and where does it, like how does one get honor? Which I feel like in general we've just kind of been talking about it as like honor is something, like in all cases the way to get honor is like kind of the same way. Like you get honor from, let's say, like listening to a rebuke or whatever. But I was thinking that like depending on the society or person's values, like that, if someone has different values or whatever, then I guess like that dictates when they will or won't honor people. And kind of in order to know like what you will get honored for in a society or in like a whatever group or anything, you have to like be listening to them and reading Mussar and tochachah as like synonyms, I guess, but like listen to like the advice and whatever that people in the society are saying.
Yeah.
And based off of that, and not that you necessarily have to do exactly what they're saying, but just like you have to have your pulse on the values of the society in order to know what will bring you honor. And the poverty I'm learning is like success, either like be not successful and dishonorable, or I think like jumping out to the second half too, like honored or success.
Okay, hold on a second. So the honor is going to stem from the values of the society, and the way to tell what those values are is by listening carefully to the rebuke that you're given. If you do that successfully, then you'll be able to align yourself with what people want to honor. Okay, not that you'll automatically conform to that. Okay, but you'll be able to. But if you reject, and I'm going to add in the Hoyo Moshe, or even don't pay attention to the types of things they rebuke you for, then you'll suffer dishonor from your like either lack of conformity or the act of rejection, I think. And then I just missed the poverty thing. Say the poverty thing again.
I was saying it's like success or unsuccessful.
Okay.
So like you'll get honor and be successful.
Yeah, we'll have a loss. Yeah, okay, right. So this is a good example. So let's say like I feel like there are a bunch of examples of this. I just want to think of see if there's a recent one here. That's funny. I mean, one example of this is the love languages, right? I mean, like, you know, okay, I always forget what the things are. Hold on a second. Love languages. 5 love languages. Words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch, right? So let's say you're someone who quality time is not one of your love languages or whatever, right? And let's say like your significant other is like on your case for like not spending enough time, you know? So you might be tempted to ignore that because that's not how you give or receive love, you know? But that's going to have consequences because you're not picking up on the needs that are being expressed through this rebuke. Or not even the needs, just the values, you know? So that would be an example where you're going to get, you're going to get dishonor. And if you imagine that on like an institutional level, you know, let's say like you're the boss and there are employees who have certain criticisms or vice versa, you know, and if you're not in tune with that, then you're going to be letting someone down. You're going to it's not out of letting them down. You're not going to have esteem in their eyes, and then that's going to be in order for any successful relationship to be there, you have to have like mutual respect, and so you're going to be eroding that foundation. All right, that's a really good idea. I like that. Reminds me of
just the question.
Yeah.
The question that I was like, whatever, thinking about is whether it's always the case. And I think on a societal level, like there are some things where like if you're in a different culture, you have to know what that culture like values and respects. But I think also like the fact that I feel like a big point of Mishlei is that like always if you're kind of doing the right thing or following truth, like at the end of the day, that will bring you more long-term honor.
Right.
So I guess that's like another like a kind of a contrast.
I don't see how that last part connects to your idea.
Because I guess I'm saying like, let's say a society really values materialism. So I think you say like, oh, okay, this society values materialism, so I should like get a lot of wealth. Or let's say a society is like a corrupt society and they value like, I don't know,
Oh, so you're giving me a case where
the-
where you shouldn't necessarily buy into their value system.
Yeah, even if it will get you respect in the short term.
Right. Yeah. All right. So, but in some cases, buying into their value system will only get you short-term respect, but you'll lose in the long run because the values are wrong. Yeah. What this reminds me of, just on a maybe it's just a verbal level, but I think the idea was also the same. Sichlo. And this has been so long since I learned this. This must be in chapter 15, 16, or 17, because I feel like I haven't seen this pasuk in a while. Let's see. No, hold on. Oh, I said lifnei. Let's see, lefi. Oh, it's in 12. So we did this. Lefi sichlo yihulal ish, v'nave lev yilavuz. According to a man's intellect, he will be praised. I think we said an idea there somewhere, like that you can tell the person's values from the types of praises that they value or the types of praises that they give, something like that. But anyway, that reminds me of that. Okay. We're almost going to be done for tonight, but let's do at least two of them Mefarshim. Okay, let's do Metzudas David, Anius ubizayon, so poverty and degradation, miutadim lavo ahmavatel hamusar, are ready to befall one who what would be the good word for mavatel hamusar? I guess fails to keep Mussar. Aval shomer belibo divrei hatochachos yuchubad min abrios. Okay, so let me just write this translation. Okay, so poverty and degradation are ready to befall one who fails to heed Mussar, but one who keeps words of rebuke in his heart will be honored by people. So I feel like the key phrase, I mean, again, with the Metzudas stuff, you always have to see what he's adding here. One who keeps words of rebuke in his heart, right, is going to be honored by people. And then, I guess neglects Mussar might be better. Neglects Mussar. Yeah. So what is he getting at here? Because I feel like there's a middle category. The middle category is someone who is not neglecting it, but they're just hearing it and then moving on, but keeping it in your heart is the thing. Yeah, Ayala?
Maybe when someone gives Mussar, they remember it. And when you get Mussar, you may not. But every time you do that action again, the person who gave the Mussar is going to be thinking I told you, whatever. But it probably slips your mind or whatever. So it's just important to keep that in mind.
Right. So the question is, what's the underlying mistake that is being made by the person who doesn't keep the Mussar? I'll just tell you what my intuition is here. I don't know if this is the only answer, but this is just where my mind is going right now. Is I feel like because Mussar is often so tied up in ego and authority, then let's say your boss tells you something, you're gonna define it in your mind as this is my boss's Mussar in this moment, But if you're a chacham, you'll view it as the boss is just the conduit of giving you a piece of chachma that exists independently of who says it, and that's where it will land in your mind. No, this is a reality. And I just when I look, it's not when you cross the street, you look both ways, not because your parent told you when you were a kid, but because the reality of what happens if you don't look both ways. So when someone gives you Mussar, if you can extract, if you could separate the Mussar from the person who gave it and the instance in which it was given, yeah, it happens to be, I got the Mussar in this case from this person, but the real Mussar is the reality, So I think what we're talking about here is there are three levels of relating to Mussar. Okay, there's one who views the essence of Mussar as the insight into reality, and that exists in his heart, irrespective of who gave it or under what circumstances. Okay, then you've got one who can only view the Mussar in that particular context. And because it's attached to that context, then even if they heed it in the moment, it won't stick with them because they don't view it as a reality. And then the worst level is one who can only view the Mussar as one ego imposing itself on as another ego imposing itself on his ego, and he totally rejects it and doesn't even want to consider it. Okay, so it's like levels of like don't tell me what to do, and then like, okay, I'll listen to you, but it's about me and you, and then there's no, I will listen to Chachma, which happens to have come from you, you know? Yeah, okay, that's good. Mitsuda's David is incredible. Like, you know, just give us the little shomer and believable, and then boom. Okay. Rabbeinu Yonah, I'm skipping, obviously not because I don't like Rabbeinu Yonah, because he connects this to the previous pasuk about the Malach HaRasha that reveals the secret. I'm just not in the mood to learn the last pasuk again. Let's just look at the Meiri. Reish v'kalon porea Mussar v'shomer tochachas yichubad. Reish shem davar. So poverty is a noun, but pasuk chaser male. But the pasuk is lacking the full spelling. Klomar reish v'kalon yimtza porea Mussar. V'hi he'ara klalis t'chol davar v'husha porea Mussar rotzalamar tochachas. Klomar shemasigo achor umashlicho achor gava. So someone who rejects Mussar, meaning rebuke, meaning that he throws it behind him and like tosses over his back, his shoulder. Yimtza reish kalon. He will find poverty, disgrace. Im bahamonios, whether in like mundane matters, reish v'kalon mamash, meaning literal poverty and literal disgrace. Im beunios, or in his studies. My ani badas. What is poor? Poor means poor in knowledge. V'hefech shomer tochachas. The opposite is someone who guards rebuke. Klomar sheyishma l'kol mochichav lehimashech achar atzasam yichubad. Okay. I am not convinced that this is going to be significantly different from what we've said to warrant spending time on right now. So let's do the Malbim as our last one. Yesh hebdel bein Mussar v'tochachah. There's a difference between the two words, obviously, because you're the Malbim. Shel tochachah hu havikuach b'dvarim u'barayos hasechal. So tochachah is from like argumentation and intellectual proof. So he's using the word like vikuach, like demonstration or hochacha, like a proof. So tochachah is like verifiable, provable, criticism or whatever. Mussar miyaser kochos nafsho alide emas haonshim v'hapuranios. Mussar is the rebuking the faculties of the soul through intimidation of punishments and retribution. Okay, so in other words, that's like an emotional type thing, not an intellectual thing. But kolon who hefach hakavod. Okay, so disgrace is the opposite of honor. Misha shomer tochachah, someone who guards the tochachah. V'dailo halimut shilamdehu al pi hasechel, and it's enough for him. The learning that he does based on his intellect is enough for him. Yichubad, he will be honored. Kizeh roy lechavod, that guy's fit for honor. But if he does not keep the tochachas, he will not be honored. But one who rejects Mussar, shagam hu yare me'onshe Hashem uporik ol legamre, that even, shagam lo yare me'onshe Hashem, he's not afraid of Hashem's punishments, and he casts off the yoke completely. Zel lo levad shlichu, but not only will he not be honored, val yimsa reish v'kalon shiovad otro v'yahafek lekalon kavodo. Then he'll not only will he not be honored, but he'll find poverty and degradation, and he'll lose his wealth, and his honor will turn to disgrace. Yeah. So that it's very similar in structure to what the move that Rifki and I were making of like inferring all the parts from the other parts and then saying the results. But just he's saying that he's not putting it in terms of like we put it in terms of where's our thing? The Mussar per se and tochachah. He's saying it's like two different types There's the the psychological effects of rebuke, and then there's the intellectual aspects of the rebuke. Okay, let's review, and we'll stop for today. Okay, so we had my idea and Rifki's idea, which is that there's different levels, that if you are open to Mussar, sorry, to tochachah, even if you're not interested in Mussar per se, so then you'll get a certain level of kavod, which is from the results will speak, the results will speak for themselves. But then if you are interested in Mussar and you go out of your way beyond receiving rebuke and improve yourself, then you'll get kavod. You'll get a success. But if you are resistant to particular tochachas, but you're open to self-development and other routes, so then you will get failure in those particular instances where you are rejecting the rebuke, but you might have other ways to bring yourself to succeed. But then if you reject Mussar per se, you don't even want to improve, so then you're gonna set yourself on a course to failure. Isaiah's idea was, both of them were about a particular instance of receiving rebuke, that the honor is going to come to you as a result of the person who gives you the rebuke watching what you do with it. And if they see that you're guarding it and improving yourself with it, then that'll raise your esteem in their eyes. But if they see you neglecting it and not improving, then you're going to be disrespectful in their eyes, not honorable in their eyes. And then we don't know how the poverty fits in. Then we got Ariel's idea, which is the Mussar for the expert, who is so high in their expertise that they feel that to take any rebuke would be a blemish to their expertise. So they reject it, and then that's what causes their degradation and perhaps even their whole undoing. But if you are continuing to grow even as an expert and you're always learning more, so then you'll continue to get success. And then we have Avital's idea, which is making sure showing the avenues to honor in both the receiving and the giving of the rebuke carefully in the proper way, and in the not doing that. And then we have Ayala's idea of using rebuke as like not a litmus test exactly, but like a window into the values of the culture that you are being rebuked in. And that's going to be necessary if you want that kavod. Not that you should always get it, because it could be a kavod that could harm you, but that's the way in there. And if you just neglect their values that they're rebuking you for, like let's say you don't care about them, let's say they're actually not really good values, like let's say, I don't know, like you're in wealthy society and like everyone cares that you have like, the latest fashions, and you just say, well, why do clothes matter? So like, it might not be a real good value, but like you are going to get disrespected by them by like not caring about the thing that they care about. And then we had Metzudas David's idea, which is that the worst thing you could do is reject Mussar because someone else is giving it to you. Next best thing you could do is take it in that context, but only conceive of it in that context. And then the best thing you can do is view it as this rebuke as a conduit to like objective knowledge, which is going to be something that you should keep even outside of that context. Okay, very good. Okay, next week we should be on, even though I will be out of town. But if you're not going to be here, like if everyone's going to be going to the eclipse and like no one's going to be showing up for Mishlei, then please tell me, because I'll cancel shiur if there are not enough people. Okay, I'm going to be just staying put in the eclipse because I don't want to drive home at night when everyone's on the road driving back from the eclipse.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I mean, I'm either going to be on the road. Well, I'm definitely going to be on the road, actually.
Okay.
I do want to be back that night.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you, everyone. I have something to tell you after I stop the recording.